Trail running. Trail running is very different from road running. Well, essentially, fundamentally, it's the same. It's one step in front of the other. But trail running offers a very deep and profound connection with nature. Unlike the predictability of pavements, trail running offers an undulating terrain that changes every step, and that turns every step into an adventure. Beyond physical challenges, it provides a mental escape, a rhythmic meditation of sorts. It's a holistic experience that not only builds endurance but also fosters a deep appreciation for the beauty that exists beyond concrete jungles. But we live in a concrete jungle. That's the reality, right? Like there are no trails around, right? Well, turns out that's not true. This city is in fact blessed with some gorgeous trails. We just need to know where they are and how to safely navigate them. Welcome to episode 43. Today we are speaking with my friend Kshitish Purohit, who's a tech entrepreneur and a trail runner who's actively striving to make Delhi a trail running haven. He has co-founded Capital Trails, which has gone on to become one of the largest trail running communities in India, and he's also the national rep for ITRA, which stands for International Trail Running Association. So he is a key communication channel between the runners and this international trail running body. So what are the nuances of trail running? What do these guys see when they head out to explore? What are they doing to grow this community? How can we organize races that attract the likes of Killian, Walmsley and Courtney Duwalter? How can we bring these guys home? It's a super fun and informative conversation. And so without further ado, here's Kshitish Purohit and me in the Find Your Ultra podcast, episode 43. Indulge away. Kshitish, my friend, welcome to the Find Your Ultra podcast.
Thank you. Thanks, Vipin. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on Find Your Ultra.
Thanks for agreeing to come on at such a short notice.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. Yeah.
Awesome. So you represent ITRA in India, and you're a trail runner, and you're an experienced runner. You've been running for a while. So, there are so many things I want to discuss with you. I'm not much of a trail runner. I've done a few trails, but I'm definitely not a trail runner because I never really trained on trails. And I know there are so many people like me, and there's no doubt the experience on the trails is very different from the road running, regular city road running. So in this conversation, I want to learn from you the dynamics of the trail running, the nuances of it, and how does when one goes from a road, like bulk of the times I've experienced this, I do all my training on the roads and then I sign up for a trail race and I find myself at a loss. कि अब अलग क्या करना है भाई उसके लिए, like where do I train for elevation, where do I find कच्चा पक्का रास्ता, and how do I ensure I don't twist my ankle and all of that stuff, and I'm not sure if there's a way to ensure that, but yeah. So let's begin with you a little bit, because let's get to know you. What do you do, where have you been all this while?
Okay. Yeah, so I think this promises to be a fun conversation. So just a quick bit of background. I don't think I have like too long a journey to share about how I got into trails or how I got into running. Just a regular guy, battling the demons of life and decided to take things under control and started running. That's it. So this happened I would say some 7 years ago, 2017 ke aspas. That's when I started running. And at that time, I had no idea what running was, what road running was. It was just about putting one step in front of the other and trying to move as consistently as possible. Then I think it was in 2018 when I signed up for my first race, I would say. I'm putting air quotes for the audio listeners. It was just a local race, it was a 10K, and I just felt confident that okay, fine, I've been doing this for about 7-8 months. थोड़ा बहुत 10 किलोमीटर तो मैं भाग ही लूँगा types ऐसे करके. And so that was it. I just went there, did that, and then after that, from there, it became a journey towards a 15K, which I did 2 weeks after that. Then there was a half marathon coming up. Again, all these local races, not the big ones like ADHM and all that. Used to be ADHM, right? So that was in 2018, and that's how I started slowly becoming serious as a runner. Then that was also a time when I was doing my, like everyone does, at least I did, the whole Strava stalking people, right? So that's where I stalked a lot of people on Strava and met a lot of really cool people. And Nakul Bhutta was one of them. Oh. And so we just started talking. And I think in any trail runner's journey in India, Nakul Bhutta must have had a role to play.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
So So we started talking, and we just decided to meet up at Sanjay one day. And he showed the trails around, and not the regular Sanjay Van path, which a lot of people run on, but the slightly off kind of things where you're climbing up the fort and you're climbing up the hill and going into the jungles and all that. That's where I figured that, okay, fine, you know what? Keep road running aside, keep everything else aside. This is where the real fun is.
So it's Nakul who we should blame for you becoming a trail
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm 100% willing to go on record and say, Nakul, when you listen to it, you are to blame. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so that's when the trail running journey started, and I won't even say the trail running journey. It was just like the fact that, okay, I came to a realization that even if you're just running on a normal patch of land or something like that, usually what happens is people see like a very small road rasta going in or something, or they see a bush and they feel that aisa iske piche to kuch hone wala hai nahi. But what that sparked in me was that, acha theek hai, let me just go there and start exploring what could possibly there behind that bush or behind that tree or something like that. And that alone, I think that has done wonders, because I've been able to discover so many things just on these local trails, right? We are in Vasant Kunj right now.
Yeah.
The 3 forests around Vasant Kunj, and there's such nice places where you can go on hikes, you can actually technically go and camp for a day.
Wow.
Right in the heart of Vasant Kunj. So yeah, that's how it started for me.
That's amazing. मुझे ये लगता है कि this is all just hidden, like undiscovered ही है, largely.
Largely it is. So must give credit. DDA is doing a lot to work on these parks and green spaces. But again, they're doing it from a very different perspective, not really from a recreational angle that way. But we guys, when we are able to go out into these forests, we are able to curate it from a certain experiential point of view. कि लोग उसमें जाएंगे तो चलो उनको पहाड़ चढ़ाते हैं, कुछ मतलब जंगल की फील दिलाते हैं टाइप, something like that. So and Delhi has everything, right? So while mostly people are familiar with the Nehru Parks and the Lodhis and all these areas, but right opposite Nehru Park, you have the Malcha Forest. There's a huge forest right over there. In fact, today we did a Capital Trails group run in Malcha Forest. And there is Sanjay Van, there is Aravali Biodiversity. There's so much which if you look at the map of Delhi, you'll see so much green space. And just about going there and figuring out your way, and that's how the trail bug will catch you.
That's amazing. When you see these like Malcha Forest you mentioned, when you go out on these runs there, do you see people there? Like, is there anybody there?
Sometimes yes, because these places are so hidden away, I would say, that the people who know about these hidden spots are the locals. Like, for example, I'll go to Aravali Biodiversity so it's just a 2.5 kilometer main trail where a lot of these people from Vasant Vihar, Vasant Kunj, they come for their daily morning walks. But you go slightly off the trail, and probably the only person I usually find apart from the locals is one person who's walking his dogs, and I've been seeing him for the last 5 years, 6 years, right? He always comes, he has like 5 dogs, 3 golden retrievers, 2 German shepherds, and he's just walking them on the trails. So so locals you will find, but non-locals, it's quite hard to find.
Paint a picture for me, for somebody who's not done a Capital Trails run yet. I'm really looking forward to doing it now as I resume my training. But paint a picture for somebody who finds, and it is a bit of an effort to drive down or reach the point somewhere and then run there. Most of us are just like put on your shoes, go down, and then start running from your colony's gate, right? So paint a picture. What do you see there, and what about wildlife? What's the scene?
Yeah, so I mean, yes, you do have to drive. Let's say some people end up driving 40 to 45 minutes or up to an hour to get to a trailhead. But then that's pretty, how should I put it? If you compare it to other cities where you have to really go out and drive really far to reach a trailhead, we pretty much have everything in the middle of the city, or pretty right outside the city. So yes, while access is an issue, what we guys ensure is that, okay, if you're there with us, we'll make sure you have a great experience, right? So it could be like, so the depending on the kind of trails that we are doing, the experience also changes, right? If it's a city trail, you'll get an experience where you may be running inside a forest or inside a park, but you're still navigating a very different type of the terrain. So away from people, away from general lifestyle and all that. But then if you're on the outskirts, places like Asola Bhatti or Gurgaon trails or the Leopard trails, for example, that's a wild outdoors kind of a feel. So it's not technical or anything, but it still has a lot of exciting elements. So what we want to achieve or we want to do as Capital Trails is get as many people outdoors as possible, get as many people away from the crowded roads of Nehru Park, Lodi, etc. Because this is a different kind of experience, and we both, Nakul and I, we strongly believe that for an all-round development as a runner, you need to have a balance of this kind of experience as well as your regular training where you're putting in the work hours and all that, right? So yeah, that's a very like quick snapshot of
Sure.
So
since you've touched upon Capital Trails, I think it's a good time. So tell us, it's a running group that you and Nakul started, and it's been a while that you guys have been at it. And how many runners do we have now?
Yeah. So I'll just go back in time a bit. So as I said, when so Nakul got me into trail running that way, and so we had been talking. We went on a few runs and all that. This was 2019 September when we just decided we'll try to do a connecting run from Aravali Biodiversity Vasant Vihar all the way to Aravali Biodiversity Gurgaon. So we took out a map, Google Maps pe, and whatever apps they were available at that time or whatever we knew of. We charted out a very rough kind of a route, and we said, okay, fine, let's just do it. We'll see what happens. So we started doing it, then we started talking on the run, and then we thought, here we are doing it. Why don't we get more people to do this along with us? And it just happened that the day before Nakul and I met for that run, I had just designed a very random logo which said Capital Trails. And I was like, okay, we're both talking about the same thing. Here, Nakul, I have a logo also, I have a name also. Why don't we start a club around this? And that's how the whole thing clicked, right? So this was September 2019 when we did that run from Aravali Biodiversity Vasant Vihar to Aravali Gurgaon. That was about 15 or 16 kilometers one way. And we encountered a lot of fences, a lot of bushes and all that, so we had to kind of jump over and go under and all those kind of things, but we made it.
Was it illegal, like they were like trespassing?
So these are okay, so I think I will touch upon this point also, but so most of these forests are under, I mean they are reserved forests. I mean the Rajokri area especially, it's called the Rajokri Reserve Forest, right? So
where is the Rajokri area? Sorry.
This is, so when you're going down from Vasant Kunj towards the airport, you go through an area called Mahipalpur.
Yeah.
So now behind Mahipalpur, if you go in the Gurgaon direction, there is this village called Rajokri.
Okay.
And so if you are familiar with the Aravali Biodiversity Park, Gurgaon, then where the park ends, this huge jungle starts, and that's the Rajokri Reserve Forest, basically. So it's essentially that green belt between Vasant Kunj and Gurgaon. So like the southernmost green belt of Delhi. So there are a lot of fences there and lots of gates also there. And so the gates are typically guarded, and if you try to cross, you either have to talk to them. It depends on them, depends on the officials whether they will let you go or not. So we've had both. We've been lucky as we have been unlucky also in that many times. But yeah, I mean it's all part of the fun, right? So it is legal. I mean it's not illegal that way. But yeah, anyone can see you going into an area, because these fences also get broken, right? And most of these fences are also just to guard cattle, not for humans. So there will be a broken fence. You're going in. If someone catches you, they will just ask a few questions, but it's largely fine.
Okay, so mostly for the cattle, you're saying?
Mostly for cattle, unless animals. It's a demarcated reserve area where they also don't let anyone
like closer to the airport. There might be some spaces.
Oh, that's all. That's all off limits. Yeah.
Right.
So, or if there is a designated army area or something like that. So we have an experience in that also. So this was September 2019 when we did this. Then we met up a few times, and in the same December of the same year, we decided to do another connecting run from Asola Bhatti all the way to Damdama Lake. So that was like a 35 kilometer one-way route where we said, okay, fine, let's start right where Asola Bhatti Lakes used to start, Kant Enclave. We started from there. went up to Bharadwaj Lake, turned somewhere, we did our explorations and all that, got out of the other side, where you have Sanjay Colony and that those villages. So again, we had started that whole exercise on a map. So we knew that route had to go this way, yahan se jana hai and all that. But we were following the map, and suddenly we reached this huge army area, right, with a full gate and everything. And guards obviously stopped us. And then they were like, who are you? What are you doing? And all that. So then we started talking to them. We told them that, देखो यार, हम ना ये कैसे कर रहे हैं? We are mapping the entire this thing. We are doing a large project and all those kind of things. We also told them that these trails are such awesome treasures that we have, and we're just two people who are on foot. We're not a safety hazard or security hazard or anything. So we had a nice conversation with them. So they also probably felt that, okay, it's not every day that you see two crazy people do this, right? Because normally you see people training for the forces, but you don't see just two random people out on a Saturday or a Sunday 35 kilometer भाग के जा रहे हैं पागलों की तरह types, वही पता नहीं क्या oxygen tank लेके and all that. Whatever happened. So then we went through that army area, and it was a pretty awesome trail. I don't think we can ever go there again because it's all restricted. But then we got out from the GFR side. Then we went on the trailathon route and then went all the way to Damdama, celebrated with some nice beers and all that. So that was these kind of things. And then once we had that experience, we were more confident that, okay, now we can enable more people to have those kind of experiences. Right? So usi time ke aspas, then we started speaking to some people in our close groups, like local Delhi runners, like Jubi was one of our earliest members.
Jubi George.
Bijendra Semwal was one of our earliest members. These are all friends we knew and who wanted to have a different kind of an experience. So this is how our group started, just with 2 people. Then it became 4, then it became 8, and last, I think since 2019 or 2020 Jan, I would say, we have been doing this as a routine activity. Every month we meet once. We call it the monthly Capital Trails group run. So we meet one Sunday every month. Typically it's a Sunday, and there, the only, I think 2 times we have missed it. Both were due to COVID-related restrictions. Otherwise, we have been pretty regular that way. So I would say it's 2020, 50 odd months of doing our monthly activities, and the club has also grown pretty well, I would say. Sometimes our group runs get an attendance of 35 people also, which scares me honestly a little bit, because when I mean
but you must be slowly training people and educating more people to be able to be of help if needed.
So that's something which I'm very proud of, and so what we have done is that once the club started getting some traction and some more people started joining us, we started enforcing some sort of I won't say rules, but started enforcing some sort of guidelines that you have to carry this much hydration. You have to be able to navigate. So you need to know what navigation apps to use. We started sharing GPX files of the route that we were going to do. Right. Obviously, we don't follow the GPX file 100% because we also see a new trail. We also want to explore and all that. But at least that gives the confidence to us and to the runners also that even if they do get lost, they can just reorient themselves and find their way back to the main trail. So that, I think, has been, I think if you ask me, that has been the single biggest achievement that I'm the most proud of, actually. That most of our group members, at least the regular ones, they're very comfortable using these tools now, right? So the chances of them getting lost is going down, and again, it's not about getting lost, right? It's not about not getting lost. I mean, it's about how to find your way back. That's the thing. So that's how we have. That's
It's fabulous, because it is a huge safety thing as well. Like, you should be, like, honestly, I have been running for a while and I don't know how to use GPX files even properly. I've used it only once. It was given to me and I tried it, and it sort of worked well in my Garmin. I have changed watches and I don't know how this works in Coros. But if I'm part of a running group like this, I will be forced to learn all of this. And then when I show up at the start line of a race that has trails, and I mean, as somebody who's been lost on trails in races, I can know how incredibly frustrating it can be. Like you've trained the whole year and you're shooting for a certain whatever outcome, and you get lost.
You just take a
There can
wrong
be
turn,
nothing more frustrating than that.
Absolutely, yeah.
And on the other more serious side, if you do get lost and you can't find your way back, serious consequences can be like serious things can take place. Which have happened on trails, and they do continue to happen. So it's a great service I believe you guys are doing, and it's totally out of passion because you love doing it first, and then you feel like this can benefit the community. So I'm in awe of the work that Nakul and you have been putting in.
Thank you.
Because this scene is commonplace overseas. Like people love, and there are beautiful trails, of course, much more beautiful than this, and the climatic.
We can give them a run for their money, man.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
You should probably then have a photography team at some point when you can, and tell the story of it.
I think that's a good idea. That's something we can definitely do.
Yeah. Great, sir. I had a conversation with Pushkar yesterday, who looks after photography in Hell Race and quite a few other races, and I learned how a race is not just conceived, but also you have to tell the story in a way that looks so appealing that people show up. And his point was amazing. Like, and I was blown away to hear that somebody who's capturing. In simple words, somebody who's doing photography at that event. As a runner, you just take your photos and you don't think about that again. But that person is actually thinking about the entire event and the maximum numbers it can handle. And that person's considering, what can I do through storytelling that you get maximum registrations so that this race takes off, so that I have the budgets to make even more beautiful films. So I mean, just digress with that a little bit, but I guess if there's such beauty is out there, we should really showcase it.
No, that's actually a nice thought, creating a story. And I mean, that's what photography and visual arts is about, right? And we have these stories, just waiting to be told.
And I'm sure, I'm glad you've started a podcast, and there's some of those, maybe you and Nakul should jam together more often, something like a monthly thing. I mean, the podcast has seen its ups and downs. I think now I've also realized that, I need to take it a bit slow. Although I have resumed it, I hope I can stay on. Because, last year when I started the podcast, I feel that I took on a bit too much. I was practically just getting an idea that, okay, isse baat karte hain, ye karte hain, and just getting down to recording it and all that. And that also led to some level of burnout, I would say. Then after that, too many things happened, and I also didn't pick it back up. But I think 2024 has been a good start. We've launched 2 episodes again in this year. Planning to do it as a monthly feature, not take on more than I can chew. Right? So No, I agree.
I'd love to learn more from you also, and I would like to invite you also on the podcast one day, and just talk about how the role of media in the sport that we all love so much.
I would love to come and share whatever I can share. Before we lose the thread of Capital Trails, I wanted to know, if somebody is on the verge and wants to join a group like that, wants to learn more and explore more about trail running, how do they join Capital Trails, and what can they expect, and what should they not expect?
Okay, so we are a pretty open group. I mean, open as in there are just 2 rules that we have as far as the club goes. One is there is a membership fee. And why we charge a membership fee is also, there are 2 reasons. One is it kind of keeps people a bit more accountable. That is one. And the second reason is that whatever money we collect, we just take out a bit for our expenses like website, etc. and all that. But most of the chunk, I think up to 80% of it, we end up donating to local causes, right? Like Sunil Harsana, who's working in the Mangar village, educating the locals over there, the kids over there.
Amazing.
Nature Bird Society. We've donated to the blind school also, the Blind Cricket Association. So we've done a bit of, every year we have our donation targets and we contribute, and this is just like our way of, paying it forward. So that's the membership fee part. And the second rule that we have is that, okay, just join us once every 6 months, because we also realize that it might be difficult for people to make time out or, be available every one Sunday every month. And so we don't encourage inactivity. Essentially, that's what we're trying to get at.
Pretty nice. And I'm sure you make exceptions if somebody's injured or whatever.
Obviously, yeah.
So use it sensibly. Yeah, that's great. What's the fee like?
So the fee was for this year it's $3,000 for the whole year.
Okay.
That comes to like $250 a month, which is any good cafe you go, it's cheaper than a cup of coffee over there.
For sure.
So yeah. So now in terms of what they can expect, right? So we are so we do a lot of. The group runs is one thing. The group runs are also we keep it as inclusive as possible. Like it's not something that we'll only do a 20k run or a 30k run or something like that. We usually do 2 variants of a group run on the same trails. One we call the short loop and one we call the long loop. Right?
Okay.
So it's just about if you're like a sort of a beginner runner or just recovering from injuries or just want to try out trail. You have a 5k or 10k level of fitness or something like that. Just join us for the short loop, which takes about an hour and a half max, covers maybe 8, 10, 12 kilometers, not more than that. And it's like a very casual, we keep stopping every 1 kilometer for photos and things like that.
Okay, I was going to ask, how do you deal with somebody who's, let's say, is new to it and wants to do run walk sort of a thing? Do you leave them behind? Or
No, not at all. So we usually, so I usually am the back of the line marshal. Okay. So we make sure everyone is always accounted for. So usually what happens is one of us, Nakul or me, one of us leads the shorter group, one of us the other one leads the longer one.
Okay.
And even within the groups, based on who is attending that run, how experienced, how familiar they are with capital trails, we just appoint some marshals or something like that, just to make sure that someone is there.
Someone who's experienced.
Need not even be experienced. Someone who is, someone who knows how things work on the trails, with capital trails and all that. But most of the times, both Nakul and I, we ourselves personally ensure that the last person is always accounted for, right? Because it's...
and the first.
But usually, it's last and the first. So, yeah. So... So the short.
And how do you sorry to interrupt there. Yeah. How do you deal with people who want to can't hold themselves back and wants to go astray? This is the route you've planned, but I want to go and you guys go ahead and I'll join. Do you get them to sign a disclaimer or something? And
so there is so just like any outdoor sports, any outdoor adventure activity, there is a waiver that we ask everyone to sign. But again, it's just it's a cover. That's all. The waiver. But while on the run, we kind of have this code system that even if someone wants to go and explore some off trail. That person just informs everyone that, okay, fine, let's go and do this. So that everyone is aware that, maybe we are deviating from the planned route, planned map, but still we are all going together, right? Okay. So we take care of all those kind of things. We are all together in the forest. If at that stage we feel that, okay, someone is being left behind or someone is very far behind, then one of us steps in and one of us says that, okay, fine, you guys go, I'll follow you, I'll just wait for this person. So basically, again, just making sure everyone is accounted for, that's it. And ऐसा normally नहीं होता कि कोई बिल्कुल ही खो गया हो. It has happened, but it's not it's not a frequent occurrence. And even in those cases, there are ways to. I mean, we do get cell network pretty much all around the forest. There's a very few patches where you don't have a network, and so once the connection is made, it's fine. Enough of us know the lay of the land to go back and rescue that person and bring them back on the group. Yeah,
relatively safer here, given that there are no mountains involved. When that complicates things.
But we have had cases where people fell down and got injured and had some massive bleeding and all those kind of things. But
that's a part of the trail running scene, isn't it?
That's
you do what can you do to mitigate those things
So I think the only thing that I would say fundamental difference between running on the road and running on the trail is you just have to be more attentive and you have to engage more of your senses. That's all. Right. So typically people fall down or trip because they are going in a group, they end up talking, and उस चक्कर में वो ध्यान हट जाता है. So they step on a loose rock or something like that, end up twisting their ankle, falling, bleeding, and all that. So mostly ऐसे ही होता है. We don't really get wildlife encounters and all that. So while there is wildlife there in these forests, there are leopards and all that, but we never encounter those. At max, we'll see some pug mark, or we'll get a glimpse of a leopard jumping from 50 meters ahead of us. But that's it. ऐसे कुछ होता नहीं है. So mostly while on the trail, when accidents happen, they are mostly because people just lose their focus and lose their attention. That's all. So कुछ कर नहीं सकते उसका. Just you have to be attentive. So so before our runs also, we do a quick little briefing that we treat every run or so we have started doing races also, but every activity that we do, we treat it as an exercise in self-sufficiency, right? So which means at the start line, we give detailed instructions. I won't even say instructions, because people know these things, right, these days. But just like a detailed briefing of what to expect on the trail, what the route is like, where will the short loop and the long loop separate, split up, who's leading everything we cover from the information standpoint, and give these kind of instructions also, that just keep one eye on the trail at all times. You may be looking at wildlife and all that, but आपका ध्यान हमेशा जमीन पे होना चाहिए. So so that's what now we are also trying. We are also learning. We are also trying to put these kind of guardrails and help people become more familiar and comfortable.
One of the so that's great. One of the apprehensions I had when I signed up for my first trail race, it was a 25k in Rishikesh. I was trying to read up online what's the difference between the two, and this was many years ago. And because I was scared of twisting my ankle, कि पत्थर हैं बहुत सारे हैं, तो क्या करना चाहिए उसका. But I guess it only comes through experience. The advice I read was, don't worry about those, because if you worry about those, you'll definitely step on those. And so just see yourself like flowing through, like water flowing through that space. And actually that really helped, that just the mindset of not worrying about it. Focused, of course, for sure, but not worrying about it. Do you think that people may share that apprehension as well on the trails? I think so,
because when it's an unfamiliar situation, I think एक वो दिमाग में एक वो हवा बन जाता है, right? कि यार पत्थर आएंगे तो मैं क्या करूँगा, right? So what I usually tell people, or what I also do it in my own practice, is that if I know or if I'm expecting like there will be a patthar, I'll start preparing for that, right? Mentally. And if I can actually physically go and prepare for it, nothing better than that. Because it's not always possible also, right, to go and train in the mountains and things like that. So you always end up finding the best approximation living in a city like this, which is pretty relatively flat. And thankfully we have these kind of trails where a lot of simulated environments are possible. But again, you can't replicate mountains and those kind of terrains. But that aside, I think if you're expecting कि यार पानी आएगा, so then start preparing yourself कि पानी आ सकता है रास्ते में. Then what do I do? Then you do some sort of mental imagery, and at least whether that helps you build physical skill or not, at least mentally it will calm you down. So that's the best way of mentally familiarizing yourself with what lies ahead. Right. Because on trails क्या है ना कि unexpected things will happen. So no matter how much you prepare, कुछ ना कुछ तो होगा जो आपने prepare नहीं किया होगा, नहीं कर पाए होगे. So the best justice you can do is to yourself is be aware कि यार ये 15 चीजें तो होनी ही होनी है. So like ankle twisting, for example, it's not that ankle twisting होना है, but you will be on undulating surfaces and terrains. पत्थर पे पाँव रखना पड़ेगा. So either you go and practice on some sort of a balancing structure, or you go run on stones, or the best, even better, is just strengthen your ankles, right? Do some strength mobility for your ankles and all that, so that in the eventuality that कहीं पे आपका twist हो गया, so your body is at least resistant to that, right? So it's about preparation, and unlike the road where it's pretty much a flat trajectory, right? I won't even say road, I will say distance running, like half marathon and all that, जहाँ पे आपको पता है कि flat ही होने वाली है सड़क, you're not really expecting anything, so you can put all your energy in meeting your time targets, right? And planning for that. In trail, it's so many other things that are happening which require you to stay engaged with more senses of yours. So tactile, smells, sab kuch, matlab everything you have to be aware of and just be prepared for beforehand. So that's it. वो अगर एक बार दिमाग में आ जाता है ना, then उसके बाद trails will not be as scary anymore. Right? Like many people have this thing कि एक तो पत्थर तो एक होते हैं, but things like running in the dark, right? कि यार वो पार्ट तो जंगल मेरे को रात में करना पड़ेगा कवर, कैसे करूँगा मैं, करूँगी. So there you practice with a headlamp. Right? That's the best thing that you can do. If you're aware, if you know that okay, in the jungles there might be some sort of, let's say, a bear encounter, for example, best thing you can do is just read up and be prepared that how to actually handle those situations. So just like some bit of education also goes in there, and that's how you can be comfortable mentally. Yeah.
Super useful. And this also the point, I think another fundamental difference between running on the road and trails is also the fact that you touched upon, which is on a road you're just one step after another, and you can afford to get lost in thought and in your zone and whatnot. Here you have to be more vigilant because directions in particular, like हर कदम पे terrain बदल रहा है, जगह बदल रही है, सब कुछ बदल रहा है, and you can easily get lost. It's very easy to get lost on trails, like easier than you think. So you have to be more like be present there.
So that's what I said, right? It's not about not getting lost. It's about being able to find your way back.
Right. Wonderful, sir. Super. And I really hope people will get into trails more. And so we'll talk about the racing scenario as the more races come up, that the whole ecosystem develops in that way, right? People start training for them more as well. So should we talk about some races in India? Some of the how is that landscape growing? What do you see happening there?
Yeah. I think I personally feel that we are in a pretty exciting stage, especially post-COVID. I feel that the quality of athletes or the quality of participation has really gone up. Right? I feel it's because of work from home and all that. So now what has happened is, before these major races, so like races like Solang Sky Ultra, SRT Ultra, Malnad, these have become like the major races or premium sort of races in India, which so what a lot of athletes are doing is, because they have that whole what do you say, I mean, they're taking it seriously, and they're able to, they're going and spending like 2 months before the race in those areas, right? So I think it's because of the whole work from home culture, because you can just move anywhere and work from there and all that. So I think that has seen a pretty massive shift in how athletes are looking at races themselves, right? The level of seriousness that is that people are showing. But again, that's limited to like the top 5, top 10 athletes, runners in India. But at the bottommost level, there is still like participation numbers are growing. Like if you see SRT Ultra 2023 last year and the year before that, since 2021, the number of trail runners they have seen, the kind of participation they have seen is over the roof, right? So like, I think I'm forgetting the number, but when Digvijay came on Tracking Dirt, he was giving those numbers. There were more than 2,000 or 3,000 people who registered, who participated in SRT Ultra 2021, right? So,
but okay, in smaller categories as well.
So there are 3 categories. There were 3 categories. So
all ultra categories?
No, there was a 10K, there's 25, and there's 53. At that time, last year they introduced a 100K also. Okay. And even in 100K, they saw like close to 70 people register this time. I mean, I'm saying that, so the numbers are growing, and this trend can be seen across all these, high value races, I would say. So SRT, Malnad Ultra, Vagamon, Solang Sky Ultra, these kind of races. So they're creating like a nice community buzz around it. And Vishwas has been doing some great stuff with Hellrace events, how he's involving the local communities and all that. So I think what I feel is that from all the angles, from a participation angle, from the community angle, because communities are also now getting involved. When I say community, I'm talking about the local communities, the villages that all these routes go through. They're all getting involved because they can see that, okay, ये race हमारे यहाँ पे आ रही है. So, कुछ तो हमारे लिए अच्छा हो रहा है types, that way. Whether it's just a perception, whether it's some business opportunity, I have no idea. But still, they can they can see that okay, something is happening. People are, it's just the basic feeling, right?
Like it's putting us on the map in some
exactly
way.
कि ये हमारे गांव को, हमारे शहर को रिकग्नाइज कर रहे हैं और यहाँ पे एक इवेंट इतना बड़ा हो रहा है जहाँ पे पूरे इंडिया से लोग आ रहे हैं. That itself is a huge feeling.
It is.
And all these races that are doing this, whether you see Manali में, धर्मशाला में, विशाखापट्टनम में, हर जगह like local involvement is becoming key, right? So that is a very good thing for the race scene and the trail running scene generally. Right? Racers also are now realizing that okay, the first level of challenges is now over, right? These are races which have matured over the last 6 to 7 years. सबके 7-8 edition हो चुके हैं. So they've gone through those challenges and now there is like some sort of a standard that they're also trying to develop, right? And I think that's going forward, that's going to be the key in development of this sport in India, because when races or event organizers get together and agree upon certain standards that every race has to meet, that's when things will go into accelerated motion, right? And because the higher the standards, the better the athletes will prepare themselves. And it's not just about training for an event, but it's also about just educating themselves, right? Because आज के 2021 से पहले कितने लोगों को कि मतलब भृगु लेक में ट्रैक होता है, हाइकर्स को पता था, बट कितने रनर्स को पता था, कितने रनर्स को पता था कि लेडी लेग बोल के कुछ वो होता है. नाउ एवरी रनर यू मीट लाइक अच्छा सोलांग, अच्छा लेडी लेग, अच्छा मैं तो वहाँ चढ़ा था टाइप, वहाँ मेरा DNF हुआ था टाइप. दैट्स द काइंड ऑफ stories that you hear. Indrahar Pass, many people didn't know about what Indrahar Pass was, but then there is a race that happened and now people are talking about it and all these things. सबको त्रिउंड तक पता होता था. फिर होता अच्छा वो ऊपर पहाड़ है, 4 दिन लगेंगे जाने में. And then you see like some 2 local kids just finishing the whole thing in 5 hours and everyone is just awestruck कि अच्छा ये भी possible है, अच्छा चल इंद्रहार जाके आते हैं. So that's like that whole, people are getting more familiar, more aware of these kind of things, and I think somewhere through the sport we are also appreciating the beauty of India, and which is why I said we can really give US and Europe a run for their money, because we have such amazing trails all over the country.
All over the country for sure, I have no doubt. I was just at that time I was just thinking about Delhi. But
Delhi भी करेंगे sir, Delhi में भी. yeah. So other than these group runs and stuff that we do in Capital Trails, we also have 3 more projects, I would say. 4 more projects, Tracking Dirt being one. But yeah, 3 more running projects. One is what we call the Nilgai Trails, which is 2 FKT loops. FKT stands for fastest known time. Again, something that became popular after COVID, when no races were happening and people just wanted to go out and do some sort of a competition.
FKT has been around for a long time, but it just became more mainstream then.
It became more popular, so popular that the website FKT, fastestknowntime.com, saw like huge surge in popularity, and Outside Magazine went and acquired it also. Wow. So we have created 2 loops which go through all these forests. One is a small loop which we call the Nilgai City Trail. That's 35-37 kilometers. So that covers the South Delhi forest, Sanjayvan, Tughlakabad, the Sola Bhatti and all that. And then there is a 90k loop which goes towards Damdama, Gurgaon, for Mangar and all these trails, and then comes back and meets at Sanjayvan. Yeah. So that's something which we want to attract a few.
Sorry, what was the distance again? One was 90 and the other one?
35 to 37, depending on how much you get lost.
Okay.
So the whole idea is to attract people from all over the country, and maybe even from abroad, just to give them a sort of DIY competition kind of a thing. Pick your time, pick your date, just do the loop. It's all published online, and just get to see a very different side of NCR. Right? So the 90k is yet to be attempted. So Nakul and I, we created the route in segments, but so we've published everything, but we haven't done it. The 37k loop, interestingly, again, it was a very proud moment for us, because so 2 people who are not part of our club, they attempted this route a few months back. Amazing. And they both finished it. One of them happens to be a woman also. So we have both a male FKT and a female FKT for a route that we created. So we're pretty happy and proud of that.
Let's give them a shout out. Who are they?
Yeah, so this guy, the guy is, his name is Vibhu Grover. Mm-hmm. And The woman, her name is Kyudamliu Gangmei. She participated in Redstone Ultra in Jan. I think she was women's podium number 2.
Okay.
And she also did the SRT 100 in December. So this Capital Trails loop she did as part of training. So that was a happy and proud moment for us.
So both finished the 90K trail or
no 37.
The
37.
smaller one.
The smaller
both
one.
Of them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the Nilgai Trails, and there's a whole story why we call it the Nilgai Trails and all that. So that's there. We'll talk about that in detail some other time.
Sure.
Then we also have recently started our own race series. So the whole idea is to do a series of shorter distance but self-sufficient, self-supported races. Right. The first edition we did in Asola Bhatti in September 2023. Again, because there is a bit of navigation, not a bit, like a lot of navigation and bit of education involved, we've kept it, for now we've just kept it as a members only thing who are part of our club.
Yeah.
But again, that can change in the future.
It should as well, probably, to be more inclusive, without compromising on the guidelines.
So this time we're doing the next one in March, and we have shared invites to a few runners from NCR, who are not part of the club, but we would like to extend the race to them. So that is something, and I think Nakul reached out to you also on that. Yeah. So it'll be great to have you on those trails, and
we've got quite a few runners in Sun Chasers who, in fact, now that FKT and everything, Biplab or Binay or Hemant in sabko karta hu thoda sa.
Yeah. So I think Nakul has reached out to a few people. Biplab has definitely been contacted for this, so has been asked. Yeah. So again, the whole idea is that it's the same format as our Capital Trails group run: one short loop, one long loop. So short will be like a 10K, 12K. Long will be like a 20, 22K kind of a thing. But in those 22K, how do you navigate? How do you carry
it's essentially a masterclass in trail running.
Exactly. And so we give no support at all. We just give a GPX file, and you carry it along. There is no route marking. There are no aid stations. There is nothing.
It's crazy. Awesome.
Start point. The only thing which we did last time was get a professional photographer. We spoke to Bounty, and Bounty was the photographer for our event. That's the only thing where we also went a little like, okay, fine, let's do something grand. Otherwise, it was a very low-key event because everyone wants good race photos, right? So yeah. Sure. Other than that, nothing. Everyone carries their own things. You carry the app. So we have volunteers placed at certain key points. They carry a QR code. So whenever you reach that point, you scan that QR code. So it's a timed event, right? So you get your timing certificates and everything. It just doesn't have a cutoff. The first edition didn't have a cutoff because we wanted everyone to finish. Because what's more important, cutoff, more than cutoff, what's more important was that people, learn those kind of things, right? They learn how to find their way back. They learn. So the stories we heard after that from the runners who participated, it was so amazing to hear that they were actually 2 runners, 3 runners were actually solving the navigational puzzle together. Which race do you get to see that, right? People helping each other out, and someone goes off track, off trail, and the other person will be calling out, hey, wahan pe mat ja, yahan pe aaja types. So you don't see that in any other race, right? It's all competition. While there was a competition here also, but everyone knew that they're together fighting against a bigger foe, proverbially speaking. So it was great to see that. I would love to see more.
That's
of that.
really the essence of trail running as well.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah.
Amazing, sir. And the next edition, you said, what date is it in March?
So we planned it for the 24th of March. Okay. It's the Sunday right before Holi. Okay. So 24th March, and we're looking at the Damdama Panikot area for this race.
Okay.
Yeah. So the idea is to do 3 races in the whole year. Identified
in different seasons.
So Asola Bhatti is one area where we would be doing this. Then Panikot is the second, and the third one we want to do closer home in Sanjayvan. So the race series is called Capital Trails Race Series, and the editions are called Asola, Panikot, and Lalkot. Okay. So that's the whole idea, and so quite excited about this because you get to also learn the organization side of things, right? Event organization, and what all things go in, so that when we actually go to a race, as participants, we are more sensitive and we are more empathetic to what the organizer is going through or has gone through. So we complain less.
No, it's totally part of the whole building the ecosystem, and it is great to actually, like you're saying, you're educating yourself about the other side. An episode that I did yesterday with Pushkar was an eye opener for me, as well as it will be for people when it comes out, to see that we just run and we come out, and all the things that we complain about. What does it take to put a race together, and how much is there to, how many variables are there? It's just so hard to handle, and you'll have more empathy towards the organizers once you do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other side, point that you mentioned about you having to not just curate this race, but also to be able to execute it well, you'll have to learn. So that's the art and the craft side of it. So the art is probably putting the race together by working out the route and everything. But you'll have to learn the organization skills, and that's you'll have to craft it well for people to have that experience, which may not be something that you ever wanted to do. You're just runners and you love this and you want to grow the community. But as a part of the whole deal, you'll be forced to do that as well.
And I think we've been pretty fortunate in that regard, because so it's a completely volunteer, club member driven, volunteer driven activity, and people. So our group members, our community members have really shown a lot of support and helped us, made sure that the organization part is as smooth and as seamless as possible. So it's a lot of. It's a great learning experience for us and for the others who are participating, for the runners, for the volunteers, and for us, everyone. It's a great experience.
Let's touch upon your project Track and Dirt, the podcasting. How has the experience been like?
Experience has been it has been pretty good. It has been enlightening, I would say. So I'll again give you a bit of a background about the podcast. So this idea came sometime in 2021, I would say, where when we had just set up our 2020-21, when we had just set up the Capital Trails website, and we were looking at some ideas for what to put on blogs and all that. So that time we got the idea that, okay, there are so many up and coming trail runners from India. There are so many good races happening in India. Why don't we just interview them and put the entire interview as blog articles so that it's there all the time? So वहाँ से फिर शुरू हुई थी बात, but again, all good things take a long time to start. So it took a long time to start, and so this was, I think, so finally I'd listed out कि these are the topics we can talk to these people about, and identified a lot of these issues or topics to touch upon. But it only happened, I think, Feb 2024, and Feb 2023 is when we went live with our first episode. And I think that's pretty near the time that Find Your Ultra also launched, right? January, right?
Mid-January, yes.
Yeah. So when I saw that, okay, you had also launched your podcast, that also gave a lot of motivation and inspiration कि चलो यार सही है, करते हैं कुछ, मजा आएगा. So that's where it started. But again, that was like, so I ended up showing a lot of excitement, and like I said, I took on a lot more than I could handle.
In terms of what? In terms of the volume of work, like the episodes, what was the commitment initially?
So obviously, figuring out what to talk about with people, figuring out the entire script, doing that research, and of course, once the episode was recorded, I always had an idea that, okay, I'm going to go a very lean kind of an approach where I'll get people on Zoom, because most of the trail runners, you don't have so many in Delhi, right? So for us, it made sense to do it as an online thing. Just get people on a Zoom call or a Google Meet or something like that, and just record that conversation. Sure. So, but that comes with its own challenges, right? So once the quality of the audio file, that can be questionable. किसी का internet कैसे कहाँ पे break हुआ है? Maybe during the call you have not seen that, but yeah, once the file comes, कुछ भी होता है. So editing would take a long time, and a lot of So, and I was also not very comfortable as a speaker at that time. So I used to do a lot of, you would be familiar with that. I used to do a lot of and all those kind of pauses. तो वो सब करने में ना मतलब it just took a lot of time, and balancing that with work and everything else. And that time I was also training for Buddha trails. तो वो बहुत सारी चीज़ें एक साथ हो गई थी. And soon after that, so then soon after that other things happened, so we had to shift and all that, so we had to move houses. तो बहुत सारी चीज़ें then the podcast just kept getting on the more and more on the back burner, and finally so much that then वो पूरा साल निकल गया and फिर कुछ हुआ नहीं. So those kind of challenges, nothing like
but these are real challenges. I mean, I've been doing this for over a year, and
you know that better.
So much that goes into it. And even when I was doing audio podcasts, I was pretty much self-sufficient. Like I would, from selecting the guest to putting the episode out and putting it on social media and promoting it on various small platforms in small ways. Everything I could do by myself, but everything took a long time. And the fact that I was doing only in-person recordings, and then I would record an intro separately and then slap it onto the file. Everything just takes hell of a lot of time. It's just and my episodes are long, so close to 2 hours, and the files are heavy, and with video it's even tougher. But let's not. But the whole process has been very enriching. I love doing this, and which is why it's a labor of love.
That's the thing, right? Yeah, it is a labor of love. Yeah, you're doing it because you love the thing. And for me, I really want these kind of conversations to go out and reach as many people as possible. And I think on that regard, in that regard, we've gotten a lot of good feedback. The best feedback I would say was when our club members, the Capital Trails members, they reached out to me and they were like, "Yaar, Kshitish, please restart tracking dirt and let us know how we can help." वो फिर वो आंखों में पानी आ जाता है ना वहाँ पे. So that was the thing. So I think those kind of things then led to just I also thought यार ठीक है अब हो गया बहुत, let's finish 2023. 2024 करते ही then the first thing I did, first weekend of 2024, I called up Digvijay, who's the Western Ghats Running Foundation. So मैंने कहा यार ये करते हैं, let's do this. And then immediately after that I reached out to Vishwas. मैंने कहा सर बहुत टाइम से अपना पेंडिंग है conversation, let's pick that up. So now I have the next few guests also planned out, and so the what happened also was the first few episodes I did was mostly with the Capital Trails within the community itself, right? So while Nakul, Chetan, etc., they are like known outside the community also, but we did some interesting, or I would say random episodes as well. Like we did one funny episode on the 10 types of trail runners you will find on WhatsApp groups, right?
Okay.
So it was like a fun take, because again this one of our club members, Kaustav, him and I, we had gone for Buddha Trails together, and we were both on the Buddha Trails WhatsApp group, and just random people posting random messages and all that. So that's
like
where we got.
Give me a flavor.
So one guy, so 6 p.m. was when 6 p.m. before the race day was when the briefing was to get over, the expo or briefing was to get over. At 7:30, this guy posts on the WhatsApp group that, hey, does anyone have a trail shoe of size 7 available for tomorrow? And there were like 4-5 of us. Mosar was also there with us at that time, and all of us, we were staying at the same place. And जैसे ही वो message का beep हुआ, we were having dinner and we just started looking at each other. ये क्या है? ये. So these kind of so and you find, unfortunately or fortunately in our podcast case, you find these kind of archetypes everywhere. Right? Any race WhatsApp group, there will always be someone who says that, oh, you know what should I buy? What Decathlon पे जाके मैं क्या खरीदूं? And when you go out on the trail, you'll always find someone who's everyone is in their zone, and this person will be listening to music at a very loud volume and going through the forest and all that. Someone who starts peeing midway, someone who starts,
That's part of the thing.
That's part of the thing, but when there are women around, then probably you don't want to do that, right? So we just said, okay, fine, let's just bring this kind of a thing.
Interesting.
गाली पड़ती है पढ़ने दो, कोई बात नहीं, but it's a
in fact, I would
funny
say
take,
let's put in the show notes, let's put the link to this episode.
Oh, that'll be
I would love to listen to this. And also the episode with the dentist. So when you were doing oral hygiene for runners or something like that was the title. I was like, and then I was honestly intrigued कि भाई कुछ तो बात होगी Kshitish ने अगर ये किया है तो what was that about?
So थोड़ी funny story है उसकी. So that So in December 2022, I had a little accident. I ended up breaking 3 of my teeth.
Damn.
And मेरे दिमाग में वही चल रहा था कि यार ये तो मतलब I had a bathroom fall and it was not a ऐसे नहीं कि तेंदुए से लड़ते हुए या पहाड़ से टंबल लेते हुए चोट लगी हो, ऐसा कुछ नहीं था. इट वॉज वेरी
बहादुरी की कहानी नहीं थी.
बहादुरी की कहानी नहीं थी बिल्कुल. इट वॉज जस्ट आई स्लिप्ड एंड फेल इन द बाथरूम एंड आई एंडेड अप ब्रेकिंग टीथ. ठीक है, जो भी था. So, Dr. Manav, who's part of our Capital Trails community, he was recommended by Dr. Sangeeta Saikia.
Yeah.
She said that, okay, he's a prosthodontist, go to him because this requires restoration and all that. So, he's the best person for this. And ठीक है, मानव को जानता भी हूँ मैं, so I'll go get it looked at and all that. So, I was undergoing that whole entire treatment which lasted, like that whole reconstruction and everything lasted about 3 months. So, I was just going through that. तो उस टाइम पे मेरे को आई वॉज ऑल्सो वेरी स्केयर्ड ऑफ डेंटिस्ट, यू नो, आई थिंक इट्स अ वेरी रैशनल फियर एवरीवन हैज, राइट? तो
आई हैव नेवर बीन ऑन अ डेंटिस्ट चेयर, fortunately, all my life, but I've read so much about it, like the people shit in their pants.
It was like so I told Manav also that bhai dekh, I'm really scared of dentists, so please whatever treatment you give me, whatever you do, just keep that in mind. So he was like, no Kshitish, sab theek ho jayega, sab rahega and all that. And so he made me feel really comfortable with the whole thing, and he did a very good job, amazing job, I would say. So in that entire ordeal, I started just going through in my head also. I was talking to Manav also during the treatment and all that. I just like दिमाग में वही आ रहा था कि यार मतलब when you're running, you're breathing through your mouth so much, and पता नहीं क्या क्या जा रहा है आपके मुंह के अंदर, right? So the mouth is basically the gateway to anything that is going inside you, right? And as an ultra runner, you are, you know, doing, आप धूल से निकल रहे हो, बारिश में निकल रहे हो, धूप में जा रहे हो, पता नहीं क्या क्या, मतलब कीड़े मकोड़े क्या क्या आपके मुंह में जा रहे हैं. You have no idea.
तो मच्छर खाते हो,
मच्छर खाते हो, right? Yeah, so that's your protein, that's your fuel source, right?
Correct.
So I just started thinking, अच्छा हाँ ठीक है, but then there are also things like gels and all that which you take, which is nothing but sugars, right? So कुछ तो इसका impact होता होगा. So I spoke to Manav and he gave me like 2-3 pointers that यार देख ये science है इसकी. तो मैंने कहा चल इस पे let's do a podcast, let's see how that is received. And so it was, I mean, the content in that podcast, the scientific content in that podcast is just like, in that episode is just like 15 minutes, I would say. But it ended up being a really fun conversation because Manav actually speaks really well, and you know, he's a great orator, I would say.
Okay.
And but again, the very good thing, the encouraging thing was that many people then again, when we were out on our group runs or we meet someone, and they again reached out to me and said ki yaar, you know what, I've always realized that this happens after I take my gel, you know. And the things that Manav spoke about, the tips that he gave in that how to actually consume gels while running, right? So that was the biggest takeaway of that. So everyone's like, you know, I've started doing this, and now I don't feel those kind of issues anymore, right?
So let's leave it right there so that people go check it out, and instead of like, let's not give the spoilers away.
Okay.
Yeah.
Works for me.
So this one also, I'm looking forward to hearing this episode and the previous one as well. So let's put both of these in the show notes as well.
Great. Yeah.
And, let's urge people to go check it out. Wonderful, sir. So we've talked about bulk of the things that we wanted to talk about. How about our ITRA? So you're ITRA representative for India,
right?
Yeah. What is ITRA?
Yeah. So ITRA is it stands for the International Trail Running Association. It's the only recognized trail running body. I mean, it's the trail running body that's recognized officially by the major athletics federations all around the country. So all around the world. In India also, the AFI recognizes ITRA. So whenever AFI does their selections for the World Mountain and Trail Championships, they take the ITRA scores into account, and that's how most countries operate in the same model, right? So ITRA it's a completely volunteer-driven, it's a non-profit organization, mainly driven by volunteers. I won't say completely driven. There is still a steering committee and an executive committee, but apart from those 7-8 people who are part of that, everyone is a volunteer who is just doing it for the, you know, love of the sport. So ITRA, so what happens is when you publish a route on, when you publish an event on the ITRA calendar, you put out a route, and the race gets evaluated, and the race is given certain points. So if it's a mountainous route, it will get mountain points. Based on the distance and elevation combination, it gets some sort of effort points. जिसको ITRA 2, ITRA 3 करके होता है. Then you get something like the finisher points, and a combination of all of these and your previous results in ITRA certified races, it gives you something called the performance index, which is your of eventual ranking or a leaderboard, where you're sharing the same leaderboard with the Killian Jornets and the Jonathan Albons of the world. Yes, they may be at 950, you may be at 450, but you're still on the same leaderboard, right? So that's like the ultimate trail running leaderboard, I would say.
So on this point, can you decode this whole system for us? So let's say a runner who's on his trail running journey and aspires to, like, let's say, represent India at some point, wants to get picked, wants to become really good at trail running, right? And to get picked, like you said, AFI also looks at ITRA scores. How do I go about planning my, like, you can take a pen and a paper and chart it out for you, right? If you need to get there, these are the number of points that you will need, and these are the sort of races you'll need to do. How does one go about that?
So, when you look at the World Mountain Trail Championships, running championships also, there are different categories over there. And each category has its own qualifying criteria, which means that, okay, if you're, let's say, if you want to participate in the short trail category, you need to have this much of a performance index on ITRA, which again translates to, if that's not the only criteria, there's also certain other supporting criteria that should have finished a marathon in so distance and all those kind of things. Okay. So for each category, there is that. So I think I would say the first step towards achieving that is to, again, like you said, plan your races, because the time window over which these scores are taken into account is, I think, I will have to verify that, confirm that, but I think it's the preceding 2 years. Right? Okay. So, or it may be the preceding 1 year. So that's something which I'm also not recalling right now. Okay. But there is a time window over which they say that, okay, whatever races you do in that time frame, the scores for each of these races, the performance, and how that translates to your performance index, that is what is going to be considered for qualification, right? So I think the first thing to do is to make sure that, okay, you are picking the right races. Okay. Even if it's a 1 year calendar, you can be sure that, okay, all the races will be covered. Even if it's like August to August, every month is there. Every month's races will be covered. So you can actually strategically choose that, okay, these are the races I want to do, because these are the races that are going to give me so many points and therefore impact my performance index.
Finishing a race gets you a point, or finishing it under a certain time gets you a point?
Finishing gets you the finisher points. Okay. So every race has something called a finisher points.
Podium points.
No. So there are again different gradations. So the performance index is something which is a relative score based on what is the best possible or the best theoretically possible time on a similar course, right? So no 250Ks will ever be the same, right? So what ITRA has done in terms of their analytics and their data insights is that they have databases worth millions of runners, millions of race results and all that. So they have created their own algorithms, saying that, let's say there is a 50K with 2,500 meters of elevation gain, right? Or nearabouts. So they have data that, okay, what is the theoretically or the best possible time for that? Right? Now,
basis historical
data. Now, then once you finish the race, they'll match up your finishing time with that best possible time, and accordingly they'll give you the performance index. Okay. Right? Finisher points you will get whether you finish first or you finish last. It doesn't depend on the position at which you finish. Okay. Right? If you finish, you get the finisher points. If you don't finish, you don't get any points. But how those points translate to a performance index, that is based on what your timing was on that. Okay. Vis-a-vis what's the best possible time on that. Okay. Now this is where there is a lot of debate also in the community, not just in India but all over, because while the ITRA scoring system takes into account distance, elevation, possible times and all that, the technicality of the terrain is something which is missing from those calculations.
And is the weather also taken into account? No.
Not really. So those kind of, no, it's not.
Elevation and distance?
Mainly it's elevation and distance. Then there are other parameters like, how many, if it's an out and back route, if it's a loop, if there are multiple loops, then there are other things.
What gets you more points? Or what gets you better performance index?
I don't think there's a better performance index. So, okay.
What's the difference between loop versus out and back?
Yeah. So let's say, loop versus out and back will probably give you the same. But if it's like if it's like a 50K single loop versus two 25K loops, then the single loop will give you better scores.
So, okay, border is not a trail race.
Is not a trail race, yeah.
But if it was like point to point, so
yeah. So that's so then there are other parameters. How many aid stations are there? The more the number of aid stations you put, the lesser the score that race will get.
So more self-sufficiency will get more points.
They have certain guidelines around how far you should place your aid stations. They also don't want to encourage, ITRA also doesn't want to encourage कि हर 2 किलोमीटर पे एक aid station लगा हुआ है types, right? So they penalize routes or they penalize races which have more aid stations than recommend. There's no recommendation as such, I would say. But like if you have 3 aid stations on a route versus 5 aid stations, you'll get penalized for having more.
Okay.
So it can be -1 point, it can be -2 points also, but there is that kind of a correlation. So number of loops does that. If it's a looping course, then it will give you lesser points than a single out and back or a point to point or a single loop kind of a thing, as opposed to So there are multiple parameters. So when your course is being evaluated, when you put up the GPX and you give your course details and all that, so their algorithm takes all those things and assigns certain points. It's like the score for finishing, the mountain points, and the overall, it's called the ITRA points basically. So there are certain confusing terminologies there.
What's mountain points? Elevation?
No, it's mainly elevation.
And altitude?
Altitude is not really taken into account.
So that's a big one, isn't it?
So more than altitude, I would say the technicality of the terrain is something which is a bigger factor.
What's a technical terrain? So because every race or everybody who's run a trail race would come back and say it was a technical trail. And what's a technical trail?
I think a technical trail is just something which requires you to have some sort of an extra skill or technique in handling that. Like something like even running on loose rocks, right? You need to know how to land, how your feet need to land, so that you're moving swiftly without any injury or twisting or all those things. So that's like a technique that you
and it's a term used very loosely, but is there a way to define it, or do you think it's just is it the size of rocks, or is it what makes it real technical?
It's just something which requires you to have that additional skill or technique. That's it. Okay. But the difficulty, like now, here's where things become slightly more complicated. Like if you look at all the races in Europe, US and all that, they have massive elevation gains. Sometimes like in UTMB, you're covering like 10,000 almost covering an Everest, right? Over that 100-mile course. Yeah. But if you look at, let's say, Solang Sky Ultra, you're covering about 7,000 meters on the 100-kilometer course. But the climbs that you're doing, they're not runnable at all. Neither on the way up nor on the way down. So you have to be very careful how you're stepping. So they're like boulders which are 2, 3, 4 feet in height, which you have to climb. So it's like a never-ending staircase. Summit Run Indrahar, it's like a staircase and it's like almost a vertical face the last 2 kilometers, right? So these are maybe not on the way up, but definitely on the way down, you need to have that special, that different technique of handling those kind of things. So now when these kind of races or routes are evaluated on the ITRA algorithm, this technicality is not taken into account, right? So which is why it's very likely that someone who does Solang Sky Ultra, even 60K, will get, if someone does a Solang 100K, might end up getting fewer points than, let's say, another race which is 80K. That just because it had more elevation gain or something like that, because the technicality is not taken into account. And this is something which ITRA is also working on, but we don't know how long it will take. But that whole there is a lot of debate in the community on how effective that is. Right?
What's your role as the India rep in ITRA? What are you supposed to do?
So according to ITRA, the national reps, so there are 2 national reps every country has, one for runners and one for organizers. And according to ITRA, the single most important role that we need to play is that of being a local communication channel, right? So whatever the local community is talking about, we need to be able to take that to ITRA, and whatever ITRA is talking about, we need to be able to take that to the local community. So, but again, it's mostly within the scope of, let's say, uploading results, helping organizers put their races on the calendar and all that. So as national reps, we don't really have a lot of authority, I would say. It's just about communication. Right?
But communication is a big one. And could you, let's say there are a lot of a few organizers who are claiming this to be the toughest trail in India, whereas the ITRA guidelines could be a certain chunk of it. What's the chunk got to be on the trail versus how much road can you have for it to qualify for a certain number of points? Or wo nahi meet ho raha hai, and despite that it's being called a trail race with ITRA points. Could you, as somebody who has about to communicate, could you potentially report that and get that race delisted?
It is,
I'm just trying to get you some beers from race organizers, basically. They just need to take you out for beers.
No, so again, so I've raised this in ITRA, the official forums also, and what can we as NRs do when something like this happens, right? It's not about getting them delisted, because that's not really going to do much good for the community, because see, end of the day, a runner has already run that race, has already put in the work, and has already probably got their points, whatever they were training for. So, but what we can do is
when you see this being marketed before the race, when you see those banners and posters being put up on social media and shared, you know that this is if you know, in certain cases, I'll give you an example. There's a race that I have done, and I know it's not really trail. There is a part of it that's trail, but it's marketed as trail, but it's not.
So, so I think the best thing that, so what ITRA also advised us on this was that if we find any such occurrence, we just tell them. But again, whether that will result in any sort of delisting or not, we have no say in that. It's ultimately up to ITRA, because see, end of the day, there is also this, so whoever is putting up their races and has paid up for the membership of ITRA, ITRA is not going to refund that or something like that. So there is that angle as well. So what I think the more constructive way of handling these kind of situations is to be able to get into a dialogue with these kind of races, with these organizers, and just try to understand what they're trying to propagate. Right? So there is a very loose guideline that I think your route should be 70 to 80% trails or unpaved. But then in India, even so many of our mountain roads are unpaved and broken, right? So do you call them trails, or do you still say that okay, yaar, ye to road pe karwa rahe hain types, right? So I personally feel that India has a very different context, representation context in ITRA, and I think at this moment I may be completely wrong, and this might anger a lot of people also, but I feel that we should just use these as stepping stones, these kind of occurrences or incidents or whatever you want to call it, as stepping stones, just to make sure that the next year when the same calendar is published or the races are done, they're handled in a much better way, right? There's a lot of debate happening around ethics generally, right? Then these kind of things where there are road races which are on the calendar as trail races, right? But again, I'm not sure if delisting them is the solution. We certainly don't have the authority to do that. Ultimately, it's about ITRA. If we can present a good case, so one thing which we are trying to work on. So what we have done is we just started having more regular conversations with all the key runners and key race organizers in the country, right, on creating some sort of these event guidelines or standards and all that. So that I feel is a much more constructive way of dealing with things, because at least that kind of a framework, if we can create that, okay, a race should be so and so, if it can be on whatever calendar, that's fine, but to be marketed or promoted as a good trail event, we need buy-in from the main people who are involved, the key stakeholders involved in the trail running scene. And we need to have an agreement that, okay, at least our races are going to meet these kind of criteria. Could be around safety, it could be around emergency response, it could be around simple things like punctuality. Half the races don't start on time in India. Right? Could be around route design. Women's safety is a huge thing. Inclusivity is such a huge thing. Ethics and fair play is a huge thing, and especially in trail running, with the whole UTMB episode that happened, that has been happening. Ethics and fair play is again coming into the conversation, right? So I personally feel that's the way forward. That instead of just identifying that अच्छा यार ये race में ये problem था, इससे ये बात करो and all that.
I agree. There's no ऐसे इतने सारे नहीं है. It's all a very small community anyway.
It's a small community anyway, right? Yeah. We have like 20 races between 16 organizers or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like 15-16 people. Just get into a room and just have a conversation, right? So that's
wonderful. Been a great conversation, sir. And I would like to wrap this with two questions, and then I'll let you go. One is about, since we're talking about the community itself, what will it take us to raise our standards to the level? And what's happening right now? Because in our opinion, because we've probably not seen too much, हमें तो बहुत अच्छी लगती हैं कुछ races. Why aren't people like Jim Walmsley and Courtney Duwalter coming to India for these races?
I think the biggest reason is that India ही आ रहे हैं तो नेपाल चले जाते हैं लोग. वहाँ पे you have better infrastructure and a different level of maturity around.
But what are the races there? There used to be Annapurna. What else?
Lots of local races in that area, and plus you have the Everests and everything which you can just go. I'm just kidding. I mean, that's not the reason. But I think there is still a way to go before we can put India on the global map. And I again, this is all personal thoughts or opinions. I feel that so what has also started happening is that in the last 3-4 years, we are seeing more Indian runners going for international events. Right? People like Kairan, Sandeep, etc. They had phenomenal results when they went to Dointhnon, which is Thailand by UTMB in December. Right? There are people who are going for UTMB itself, doing CCC, OCC and all these races. And more people are now doing that. Then WM, the World Mountain and Trail Running Championships in Austria that happened last year. There are a few people who went, like Sanat and all, they came back with really good results. And now again for 2025, people have already started training and preparing. So as more and more people go abroad, I feel that they're going to bring back a lot of valuable insights which can be then used by organizers over here to improve or to just change the way races are held, right? Because till now, I feel that we haven't really had any sort of guidance or inputs, and people have just learnt by themselves, right? Every race that you see, north to south, east to west, people have just learnt these things by themselves, and करते करते सीखते सीखते उन्होंने अपनी रेस को एक लेवल तक लेके आए हैं वो, right? So now I think it's also now high time that we take that as the baseline and start talking about other issues that are still not being talked about. And again, like I said, inclusivity. We still don't get a lot of women participation in India, right? Emergency rescue response etc. is still pretty non-existent in the country. इसमें तो race organizer भी कुछ नहीं कर सकते, but maybe something that they can do is give some sort of an insurance cover as an option or add that, right? I know Samitran Chetan has been doing that in both of his races. He includes an insurance cover which basically takes care of, just gives you that comfort and security that अच्छा कुछ होता है, अगर कुछ हुआ तो मैं cover हो जाएगा उसमें. So while it's not possible everywhere because again it requires some sort of infrastructure. तो net मेरा मानना ये है कि like a lot of things need to go hand in hand for someone like Jim Walmsley and Courtney to come down to India. It could even be something as small as someone giving them a flight ticket and just calling them to a race. But I think for organically things to be there, where India becomes a destination, I think there needs to be we're still 2-3 steps behind that.
So for a gym and so I think we will become very good for that. But even the mid of the pack runners were pretty good. Why don't they come and explore more races here?
So I think first thing is awareness itself. I don't see India being on so people are not really aware of such good races or such good things happening in India, right? And I think so that's definitely one area where how do we market India on the international scene. So for a short while ITRA had given us country level Instagram accounts, so we were using that to showcase our Indian races.
I was going to ask you, why is that account inactive?
No, so ITRA just changed, made a decision that they wanted to just consolidate all the communication and all that. So all the country level accounts have been shut down. So now there's only one single ITRA_trail account, and they're still working with everyone. So tomorrow, we did a feature post on Chiron, right? Last month. So similarly, we can obviously plan a lot of we can plan a calendar with ITRA. So ITRA starts promoting Indian races, let's say SRT or Vagamon or anything.
But wouldn't it be better if you had individual properties building in different localities?
Personally, yes. This was a point of debate in the community, but it was already decided, so we couldn't really do anything.
Okay.
Right. So. But yeah, it was a great opportunity, I feel, and because see, it's not just about using a social media channel, right? It was also creating a bit of trust in the community that ITRA हमें देख रहा है, हमें सुन रहा है types. It was that kind of a feeling, and we received a lot of positive response when we were running that account. Number of followers, number of kind of engagement. People were really happy that यार मेरी छोटी सी race भी promote हो रही है ITRA पे, right? That's a very good this thing. And we had great ideas around how to showcase runners, how to showcase communities, clubs, coaches and everything. बहुत कुछ था हमारे पास, but then that kind of... So we're still working with ITRA on how to use the official channel as a means to get the message out. Maybe it's a good thing because at least now we know that it's a more direct connect with the international community if it comes through the official account, right?
But yeah, I guess both could work in conjunction and do better.
Yeah.
But because acknowledgement helps things grow as well.
Exactly,
for sure.
exactly. But the main reason, the main argument from the other side was that there were lots of country level accounts which were inactive, which were not doing anything.
Okay.
And then there were some accounts like Argentina was doing a lot, Portugal was doing well, we were trying to do a lot, and we were actually quite active. So it was only these 3-4 accounts that were actually doing well, and others were not doing anything at all. Okay. So just probably a decision just to
anyway.
We will leave it up to them. That's fine. Yeah, so I think coming back to the topic, I think awareness about Indian races in the international scene, that is something definitely which is going to help. And if that kind of a thing can be achieved in conjunction with generally bottom up raising the standards of races, we've come to a level where we're organizing very good events, but still these are still a bit far from being organized as really great events, like something which we would like to invite Killian for or Jim for or something like that. But yeah, if this podcast reaches Jim Walmsley or Killian or Courtney or anyone, India is a wonderful country and we have wonderful races, so please do come. But so that is one. And I think another thing is generally so now with UTMB having built their satellite kind of a framework, so that is also, I feel that's an opportunity to start attracting people from abroad. It may not be the likes of Jim Walmsley and Courtney, but still, if you can get like you said, the slightly middle kind of people, or maybe champions, or maybe the top runners from different countries, right? Maybe top runners from Indonesia or something like that, Thailand. So
So when you get them to do this, they get everything gets more eyeballs and it becomes more popular.
Yeah.
Or do you think the other approach is needed, which has a lot of controversy because mention your name, the moment you mention the name Ironman and UTMB now following suit, right? I was going to ask you, does marketing play that role? Because the way say whatever you want, but the way Ironman has created that brand is inspirational for people, aspirational for people. So is that the way forward, you think?
So I think this is a pretty solid question, and I have I've had a lot of thought about this, and I wanted to just figuring out what the best way to get this across is. Maybe great opportunity, but honestly, so the whole UTMB episode has got the entire trail running community split into two parts, right?
Right.
So the arguments are that UTMB Ironman is not good for the sport of trail running, and there is a lot of money now. It's big money coming in, and trail races are not accessible anymore. Everything has become more expensive.
So boycott them and go for local trail races.
They're eating up local trail races and all that. So there is that side of the argument that's happening, and because we've also seen some examples, right? If you're aware, or Gary Robbins's race in Whistler in Canada. There was a small resort in Canada which didn't renew his contract, and within no time they associated with UTMB, and it became Whistler by UTMB, right? So that kind of created a huge movement in the community saying that okay, UTMB is out to eat up smaller races, local races, and put money and all those things. So that is there, and then a lot of athletes are now coming together and putting out sort of inviting or calling out on other athletes to start looking at local races as an alternative. So while that is the anti-UTMB sentiment that is happening, but I also feel that UTMB has this entire Ironman UTMB collaboration, it has also created a lot of popularity for the sport of trail running. Like earlier, it was still now you have UTMB races in so many countries. Just 2 days ago, there was a UTMB race happening in New Zealand. SRT Ultra and some Indian races are also planning to get on the UTMB line. So hopefully that will give us more eyeballs, right? India by UTMB. That's a great thing to happen for India. Yeah. And I personally feel that as Indians who are we are at a stage where these things should not really affect us, because it's an opportunity for us either way, whether we associate with UTMB or UTMB's line of thought, or we associate with the more purist line of thought from ITRA and the community and all that. I think it's a great opportunity for us because we have both the routes open for us, right? And I think we need to work together. When I say we, I mean organizers, runners, the local communities. We need to work together and figure out a way how India can actually become the next trail running destination, right? Because Europe में क्या हो गया now? US तो you can see US, Canada, Europe, like there is clear there's a clear divide between athletes wanting to boycott these big races, going for smaller ones. Some people saying that nahi yaar, they have had their time in the sun, now how can you tell us to boycott? Now it's our time to shine. So there's those lines of thought also. So for us, we are kind of 3 steps behind all of that. So that's a great opportunity because we have all the options available to us, right? आपको UTMB करना है, जब तक इंडिया में नहीं है, you can just go to Thailand, right? Yeah. Thailand हर कोई हर वीकेंड पे जाता है बीच पे छुट्टी मनाने के लिए, right? You go for a race, man. Yeah. So I think we're getting there. We have a bit of homework to do before we can, call ourselves a trail running nation or a trail, or before we can start inviting the likes of Jim Walmsley, Courtney, Zach Miller, jitne bhi, all the who's who. But yeah, it's not unachievable. Just needs people to just get together, put our brains. इतना कर लिया यार, मतलब इससे ज़्यादा अब तो मतलब सब कुछ सेट है अपने पास.
No, but I guess it will require a collective effort and the groundwork that a group like Capital Trails is doing. We need more of those, and I think Juby George has just started one.
Yeah.
For women.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Great. My last question, sir. For city dwellers, people living in Delhi, training mostly on Delhi roads and just completely comfortable in their running, like on their running route and everything, and they sign up for a race like a Malnad or an SRT or some other trail race or Solang. Right? What changes now? Let's say they have the mileage in legs. मान लो 100k a week, 80k a week वो कर रहे हैं. As an ultra runner, that's maintenance mileage.
Right.
How do you start shifting your perspective and your training regimen? How should that be changed? And what mindset shifts do you need to be able to do well there and come back alive?
Come back alive तो खैर हो जाएगा.
Hopefully with a medal.
हाँ, hopefully with a medal. So I think देखो, see if you get into the whole so one is the training part and one is the mental preparation part. That's how I would like
so let's just hear about both.
हाँ ठीक है. So training में like it's more about eventually it's about training for the specifics of the event, right? So if you have, let's say, signed up for a Solang Sky Ultra, right? Let's say 30k के लिए sign up किया हुआ है, which in itself is a pretty difficult race or category. And so अच्छा ट्रेनिंग को एक मिनट साइड रखते हैं, फर्स्ट प्रिपरेशन पे आ जाते हैं. फर्स्ट थिंग इज एवरीवन शुड रियलाइज दैट ओके, इट्स जस्ट बिकॉज इट सेज 30k, इट्स नॉट अ 30k रेस, राइट? इट्स गॉट वे मेनी मोर चैलेंजेस दैट इतने मतलब उसमें आई थिंक in the Solang 30k itself, in the Solang 30k category, you end up gaining about 1800 to 900 meters of vertical. And उसमें भी जो highest point जाता है आपका ब्यासकुंड के पास, that is above I think 43 या 4400 meters above sea level पे जाता है, that altitude, right? So the immediate two things that come to mind or that you need to be prepared for is A, altitude, and B, the elevation, right? So these 2 points alone mean that it's not a regular 30k effort. So ऐसे नहीं है कि अच्छा आपने 30-50 किया हुआ है तो आप ये वाला 30 भी आप कर लोगे. So it's important to be aware of that. You'll be able to do it. That's not in question. But it's more important to be aware of that so that you can start preparing for it. Right? Because when you're at 4400, 4500, because 4200 के ऊपर आपको वो फील होने लग जाता है altitude, right? 4000-4200 के ऊपर फील होने लग जाता है. And when you are going to be spending considerable time at that, because at that altitude, when you're climbing, you are going to slow down, you are going to be in an oxygen deficit for a much longer time and all that. So again, so उसका preparation is you can't just land up saying कि अच्छा चल ठीक है मैं sign up कर लेता हूँ, मैं कल पहुँच जाऊँगा, परसों पहुँच जाऊँगा और कर लिया मैंने. You have to plan your acclimation accordingly, right? So that's the second step. Third step is that then you start learning more about the route characteristics. Every good race, I would say, publishes their GPX files well ahead of time, right? ताकि आप even before signing up for a race, you should have the GPX file. You will have the GPX file. So उसके through आप देखो कि what is the elevation profile, कहाँ पे क्या टाइप की चढ़ाई हो रही है. Maybe do some Google search. Maybe try going there also, right? If let's say your race is 4 months down the line, just make a trip. Just go there without any expectation. Just go there to just understand the lay of the land, right? कि अगर ये चढ़ाई है तो कैसी चढ़ाई है, because on the map, on the GPX file, you will see that okay, it's a slope, undulating slope going like this, like वो हो रहा है, but actually what is the real feel of that, right? So the more you are familiar with these kind of specifics, the better you will be prepared and the better you will be able to translate that into your training blog. Now coming to training, obviously it's about training for the specifics, right? And not everyone can go and spend 4 weeks in the mountains or 8 weeks in the mountains before.
I was going to say, but for altitude, there is no other substitute. Altitude acclimatization, there is no substitute, or is there? Apart from going there.
So
advance.
Going there is the best way to acclimate. The science is that the time window in which you face the effects of that oxygen deprived the effects of altitude is 24 hours to 72 hours, right? So what the coaching what many coaches agree on these days is that either you go well in advance, like go a week in advance or all that, so that you have crossed the upper end of that 72 to 96 hours wala phase, or you land up on the morning of the race itself, so that you are under that 24-hour window. Right?
Wow, that's something very new.
Yeah, but then the problem is that places like Manali and all, you can't just land up, take an overnight bus and land up in the morning and say कि भाई मैं 60 किलोमीटर सोलांग करके आ रहा हूँ. You'll be tired and all those kind of things, right? So so that's the thing. So if it's a place which is accessible and you don't have time, you can actually land up on the morning of the race, assuming that the race is starting at 7 a.m. or all that. आप 5-6 बजे तक पहुँचो, do the race, come back. You're less likely to feel the effects of altitude that way, because that window is like 24 to 96 or something like that.
Okay.
So, but yeah, coming to back to the point on specific. Actually, regarding altitude, there is also this science that humidity is like a poor man's altitude. Right? So if you're training in humid conditions, it kind of elicits the same kind of physiological responses that altitude does.
Achha.
But again, it's not like 100% this thing. So the best you can do is train properly and do like enough amount of strength training, be prepared. In the specifics wala block, try to get as much vertical as possible.
So how does somebody living in Delhi, Biplav is training for a race in the hills,
okay,
and he's doing stairs every day.
Yeah.
4,000, 8,000 stairs every day. Does that help?
That definitely helps. It's better than not doing stairs. Yeah. See, again, there are multiple systems in play, right? There is going to be a motion component, there is a strength component, there is a muscular endurance component. Doing stairs is a great exercise, but the problem with stairs is that they get over before you realize it, right? Even if you're living in a building that has, let's say, 15-16 floors, maximum आपके stairs 3 minute 4 minute के चढ़ाई आपकी उतनी होगी. But when you're in the mountains, your climbs are going to be like hours together, right?
Sure.
So but yeah, if you don't have any other option, then stairs are your best friend.
Yeah.
An alternative could be doing a stair stepper in the gym, right? Where you can say कि अच्छा ठीक है मैं continuous 20 मिनट के लिए कर रहा हूँ.
Right.
उससे ज़्यादा वैसे भी करना beneficial नहीं है. You can do like 3 chunks of 20 minutes, and that becomes a nice workout rather than trying to climb for 1 hour, because वो counterproductive हो जाएगा.
Sure.
Or you can do other things like just to train for the muscular demands. You can carry a weight pack and make the incline on a treadmill at max 15% and just keep hiking or running for 30 minutes, 45 minutes. So उस टाइप की चीज़ें आप काफ़ी कर सकते हो. The problem with Delhi is that you don't have long hills. You have short hills, जो आपके 1.5-2 minute तक आप you can run at various intensities and train for that. Like Sanjeevan has a great hill which is about 350 meters long, and it gives you like 25 to 30 meters of vertical on this thing. So it's a steep hill by Delhi standards, I would say. But again, उसका 1.5 मिनट में खत्म हो जाता है वो हिल. अगर आप तेज दौड़ रहे हो तो वो 1 मिनट के अंदर खत्म हो जाएगा वो. So it's not really giving you those kind of benefits that you need. So you have to resort to things like stair steppers, gym, treadmills and things like that. But again, best way is to, जब भी आपका वो specifics वाला block चल रहा है, be prepared for that. Like do your speed work, do your lactate threshold work, जो आप regular आप marathon training के लिए करोगे.
Sure.
जो फाइनल आपका endurance marathon specific block होता है, वहाँ पे आप race specific block आप कर लोगे अगर, where you are trying to get as much closer to the race profile as possible.
Right.
So again, the training philosophy over there is that अगर आपका race has like 3,500 meters of vertical on that course, try to get as close to that number over the whole week and do that repeatedly for 4 weeks. So at least it will train your body for those kind of demands.
Yeah.
Now, how to get those in a city like Delhi? Again, it comes back to Sanjeevan ka hill, building की सीढ़ियाँ. द्वारका में तो फिर भी ऊंची buildings हैं, तो you can still get like a good amount of this thing, and use stair steppers, treadmill with incline and all that. Even that's not going to really prepare you, but it's better than not.
But I'm so glad you did not mention flyovers, because those scare the shit out of me.
Flyovers are not.
What time? Even if you do early morning, and even if you are, let's say, training at 4 o'clock in the morning on that flyover, there are a lot of people who are coming drunk and smash you.
Yeah. I used to do flyovers at one point, but it's too much of a safety hazard. Yeah. Like you said, right? 4 बजे सुबह तो everyone is drunk at that time, so you don't want to do that. So वो तो हाँ, but I mean there are alternatives. There is a great website called capitaltrails.in. There's a sign up form over there. You can just fill that form. Someone will reach out to you and take you to all these trails where you can train for any race that you want to do.
That's wonderful, and that actually answers my last question as well, which was where can people find you? So
so capitaltrails.in is our website. We have an Instagram account where it's Capital Trails shit, I've forgotten the Instagram account. Capital Trails RC, yeah, running club. That's the two places where, so on the website we keep putting a lot of blogs. So our community members, our group members have started sharing race reports now. So we are putting that also, encouraging them to also write more. So so that's where the community is being built. And then there is the Instagram account. We're not very active socially. I think it's a byproduct of the fact that both Nakul and I are not the most social media friendly people. But I think someday it has to change. Someday we realize that, and
maybe it doesn't have to change. Maybe somebody else in the team will take that up.
Change happens in weird ways, right? So, but we'll have to do that. So these are the two main areas where we can be found. And
Superb. So what a conversation. I'm so glad you made time for this, and I love you guys for what you're doing.
Thanks
you're helping
a lot.
Raise our community, my community, and I love every bit of that. Thank you.
Amazing. This was had a lot of fun. I may have messed up some of the ITRA related points scoring system, but there is always that information is available online.
They can be looked up.
They can be looked up. But it was great. Thanks for having me on Find Your Ultra Weapon. And like I said, I would love to get you on Tracking Dirt as well, and talk on certain focus topics around media in general, and how can that contribute to the sport, both ultra running and trail running. Actually, running as a sport, right? It's not, we don't have to shoehorn it into a type of running, right? It's for the sport of running, right? So
all yours, do that. All yours whenever we
awesome.
We get around to doing it. Thank you so much.